He had always lived a life of comfort and luxury. From a very young age, he knew wealth would be a part of his life. His parents had made sure he understood the value of money, but they had also taught him about power and influence. Over the years, he had built a business empire, investing in everything from real estate to technology. People around him admired him, envied him, and sometimes even feared him. But despite all of this, he often felt something missing. There were moments when he sat in his grand office, looking over the city, and wondered about the true nature of people. He wondered if anyone would treat him with kindness if they didn't know who he was or what he had. It started as a thought, a quiet curiosity he couldn't shake. He wanted to find out if people could be kind without expecting anything in return. He wanted to see honesty, compassion, and generosity in its purest form. And he realized that the only way to do this was to step out of his world, out of his luxury, and experience life as an ordinary person. It wasn't going to be easy. He knew he had to leave behind his expensive clothes, his fancy car, and the security that came with knowing his wealth would always protect him. He had to blend in, be invisible, and observe quietly. One morning, he woke up earlier than usual, feeling both nervous and excited. He carefully chose clothes that would make him look ordinary. He picked a worn-out shirt and an old pair of jeans, making sure there was nothing that could hint at his true identity. He even left his usual watch and accessories at home. When he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The man staring back didn't carry the aura of power he was used to. He looked like someone who could easily be ignored, someone who belonged in the crowd. He smiled, thinking that was exactly what he wanted. He decided to visit a small cafe downtown, one that he had heard was modest and family-owned. It was not the kind of place the rich and famous visited, and that was perfect. He wanted to see real people, not those who had met him before, and treated him with politeness because of who he was. As he walked through the streets, he felt a strange mix of freedom and anxiety. People passed him by, unaware of the life he had, and he liked it that way. No one looked at him with expectation or curiosity. No one assumed he was important. The cafe was small, with wooden tables and chairs that had clearly seen years of use. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the aroma of baked bread and pastries. It was warm and inviting, and he immediately felt at ease. A few customers were scattered around, chatting quietly or reading books. The walls were decorated with simple pictures and family photographs, giving it a homely feel. It was nothing like the luxurious restaurants he usually frequented, but that was exactly why he had come here. He wanted simplicity, authenticity, and perhaps a glimpse of humanity he didn't see in his usual world. As he took a seat near the corner, he noticed the waitress immediately. She was moving quickly between tables, balancing trays with a skill that suggested experience. Her hair was tied back neatly, and there was a calm, confident energy about her. But what struck him most was her smile. It was genuine and warm, not forced or polite in a professional way. She greeted every customer with the same kindness, and it was clear she genuinely cared about them. He felt a pang of admiration. He wondered what it would be like to test her, to see if this kindness extended to someone she thought was poor and had nothing to offer. When she approached his table, he greeted her politely, but tried to appear modest and humble. He asked for a simple cup of coffee and a slice of bread. As he did so, he made sure to mention that he didn't have much money and that he could only pay for a small meal. He even added a small apology, hoping it would emphasize the impression he was trying to create. Her eyes softened as she listened, and she smiled warmly, assuring him it was no problem. She didn't hesitate, and her voice carried no judgment, only understanding. It was the first sign that he might be witnessing something real, something honest. As she left to place his order, he looked around and observed. She moved from table to table with the same care and attention, making sure everyone was comfortable and happy. He noticed how she interacted with a young couple sitting nearby, laughing gently at their jokes and offering helpful suggestions from the menu. Then, she stopped at a table with an elderly man who seemed unsure about what to order. She guided him patiently, never rushing, never showing any sign of frustration. Watching her, he realized that her kindness was consistent, not selective. It wasn't about impressing someone or gaining a reward. It was just who she was. When she returned with his order, she placed it in front of him with a smile. He thanked her, and she responded with a simple, "You're welcome. I hope you enjoy it." There was no hint of condescension, no pity, no attempt to assert power over him. She treated him like a person, not like a customer to be judged. He felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. It was a small gesture, a small interaction, but it carried a weight that money could never buy. As he took a sip of his coffee and a bite of bread, he thought about the life he had. He had power, influence, and wealth beyond measure, but moments like this were rare. Moments where someone treated him with pure kindness, without expecting anything in return, were almost non-existent in his world. He realized he had been searching for this feeling for a long time. And now, sitting in this humble cafe, he felt it. The waitress returned periodically, checking if he needed anything else, her voice always polite and gentle. He started to notice small details, the way she smiled at the children who came in, the way she listened intently to a customer sharing a personal story, the care she took in arranging the plates neatly. Each action was simple, but together they painted a picture of a person whose heart was full of empathy and compassion. He couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and humility. Here was someone whose life was probably far from easy, yet she carried herself with dignity and kindness. He continued to watch her, realizing that this moment, this simple experience, was teaching him more than any business deal, any luxury purchase, or any success he had achieved. He was learning about humanity, about the simple, profound impact of being kind without expectation. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just toward her, but toward the world, for giving him this glimpse into what truly mattered. As he prepared to leave, he decided that he would return, not as a wealthy man showing off his fortune, but as someone who wanted to understand the world through the lens of genuine human connection. This small cafe, this simple waitress, had reminded him of something he had forgotten: the beauty of kindness, the power of empathy, and the importance of seeing people for who they truly were, not for what they could give you that day. As he walked back into the bustling city streets, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. The experiment had only just begun, and yet it had already changed something inside him. He had come looking to test others, but in reality, he had been tested himself, and in a way that left him both humbled and inspired. The journey ahead promised to reveal even more, but for now, he carried with him the simple, profound lesson that true kindness could shine even in the humblest of places, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people were found in the most ordinary of settings. He returned to the cafe the next day, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. The memory of the previous visit lingered in his mind, the way the waitress had treated him, the genuine smile on her face, and the sense of warmth that had filled the room. He wondered if she would remember him, if she would treat him differently this time. He reminded himself that he was still pretending, still the ordinary man with little money, and that he had to be careful not to reveal too much too soon. As he stepped inside, the familiar smell of coffee and bread greeted him. The cafe was busier this time, with more customers laughing and chatting at tables. He scanned the room and saw her immediately. She was just as graceful and composed as before, moving from table to table, taking orders, and checking on customers with that same gentle patience. Her eyes lit up briefly as she noticed him, but she didn't show any signs of recognition beyond a polite greeting. He liked that. It felt natural and forced. He ordered the same simple meal, a cup of coffee, and a slice of bread. As she listened to his request, she smiled and nodded, her voice soft and friendly. He noticed the way she treated him without judgment, the way she maintained her kindness regardless of how little he could spend. While waiting for his order, he observed her interactions with other customers more closely. A young couple arrived and struggled to choose what to order. She patiently guided them through the menu, suggesting options based on their tastes and preferences. She didn't rush them or push them toward more expensive items. A little later, a man came in looking visibly upset. She asked gently if everything was all right, offering a listening ear and words of comfort. It amazed him how she could stay calm and compassionate, even when the cafe was crowded and busy. Her kindness seemed effortless, as if it was a natural part of her character. When she returned with his coffee and bread, he thanked her quietly, and she responded with the same warm, welcoming tone as before. He realized that her behavior was not dependent on who he was or what he could give. She didn't need to impress anyone, and she didn't seem to expect anything in return. The millionaire felt a pang of guilt, knowing that he was observing her under false pretenses. He was testing her, but she had no idea. Despite this, her genuine care for others continued to shine through, and he couldn't help but admire her even more. As he ate, he noticed a small boy sitting alone at a table, looking sad and anxious. The waitress approached him, kneeling slightly to speak at his level. She offered a warm smile and asked if he was okay. The boy's eyes lit up, and he nodded shyly. She gave him a small piece of bread from her own tray, making sure he had something to eat. The way she instinctively cared for someone in need struck him deeply. It was not just professional courtesy. It was pure human kindness. Watching her, he realized that her actions were a reflection of her heart, and that heart was rare and precious. During this visit, he began to engage her in conversation more intentionally, though still careful to maintain his humble persona. He asked her about her day, her work, and how long she had been at the cafe. She answered with warmth and honesty, sharing small stories about her life, her family, her dreams, and the challenges she faced. She spoke with a quiet strength, showing resilience without complaining. Her humility and sincerity touched him. He found himself genuinely interested in her life, not as part of an experiment, but because her presence was refreshing and inspiring. Over the next hour, he watched her move through the cafe, observing how she handled different situations. When a customer accidentally spilled a drink, she cleaned it up quickly and reassured the person with a smile. When someone asked for advice on a menu choice, she responded patiently and with care. It became clear that her kindness was consistent, not selective. She didn't act differently for those she thought were important or wealthy. Everyone received the same respect and attention, regardless of who they were. The millionaire felt an overwhelming sense of admiration and humility. In his world of wealth and power, he rarely encountered such authenticity. At one point, a woman entered with a crying toddler. The child was hungry and restless, and the woman looked stressed. The waitress immediately approached, offering a comforting word and helping to calm the child. She brought a small snack for the toddler and engaged with both mother and child in a kind, gentle way. Her actions were not extraordinary in the sense of grand gestures, but they carried a weight that money could never match. The millionaire realized that true kindness didn't require wealth. It only required a willing heart. As he finished his meal, he reflected on the lessons he had learned in just 2 visits to this cafe. He had come to test her, to see if she would treat someone she thought had nothing with dignity and care. Instead, he found himself inspired by her. She had passed his unspoken test with flying colors. demonstrating that compassion and integrity were qualities that could not be measured by money or status. He felt a mix of gratitude and awe, realizing that he had been searching for this kind of humanity in his own life, often overlooking it in pursuit of wealth and power. Before leaving, he left a small amount of money on the table, enough for a proper tip, but nothing extravagant. He wanted her to continue seeing him as an ordinary customer. As he walked out, he noticed her giving him a friendly nod, her smile unchanged. He felt a sense of connection, subtle but meaningful, knowing that their brief interactions had left a positive impression on both of them. He left the cafe with a lighter heart, feeling more hopeful about the world and the people in it. Outside, the city felt different. The noise and rush of the streets seemed less overwhelming. He realized that what he had experienced in the cafe could not be bought or planned. It was organic, real, and profoundly human. He understood that wealth could provide comfort, security, and power, but it could never replace the warmth of genuine human connection. This experience was teaching him that the true value of life lay not in what he owned, but in the moments where hearts met with honesty, empathy, and kindness. Over the next few days, he continued to visit the cafe, each time observing her with growing admiration. He noticed small details he had missed before, the way she laughed at a child's joke, the patience she showed to a confused customer, the genuine interest she displayed in everyone's story. Each observation deepened his respect for her and strengthened his belief in the goodness that still existed in the world. He realized that her actions were a quiet form of courage, a testament to the power of empathy in a world often driven by self-interest. The millionaire knew that his experiment was far from over. He still wanted to see how far her kindness would go, how she would react in unexpected situations, and whether her compassion would remain unwavering. But he also recognized that he was no longer just testing her. He was learning from her. Each visit was a lesson in humility, patience, and the quiet strength that came from caring for others without expectation. He felt a growing sense of purpose, understanding that these experiences were shaping him into a more thoughtful, compassionate person. That day, as he walked back into the busy streets, he carried a new sense of clarity. The world was not defined by wealth or status, but by the choices people made, the kindness they offered, and the integrity with which they lived. He had come to the cafe to test her, but in reality, he had been tested himself. And through her simple, genuine actions, he had discovered a truth he would carry with him forever, that human goodness, when nurtured and expressed freely, could leave a lasting impact far greater than any fortune could provide. The next time he entered the cafe, there was an unusual tension in the air. It was a rainy afternoon, and the city streets glistened under the drizzle. People hurried past the cafe, umbrellas in hand, seeking shelter. He pushed open the door, letting the warmth and aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrap around him. The cozy interior seemed even more comforting against the gray, wet streets outside. The waitress was there, moving gracefully between tables, her smile undimmed by the weather. Even though the cafe was quieter than usual, her energy filled the room, giving a sense of calm and welcome to everyone present. He found a seat near the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass. As he settled in, he noticed a small boy outside, shivering in the cold and rain. The child looked hungry and alone, clutching a worn-out bag close to his chest. The millionaire's heart tightened. He had seen many people struggling in the city, but the sight of this child struck a particular chord. He wondered how the waitress would react if she noticed him. He didn't have to wait long. Her eyes caught the boy immediately, and without hesitation, she approached him at the door, holding out a warm, kind smile. She beckoned him inside, speaking softly and reassuringly, and the boy followed, trust in his eyes. Once inside, she quickly brought him a towel to dry off and offered him a warm cup of soup, prepared with care. The millionaire watched, captivated by her actions. This was beyond service. This was genuine concern for someone in need. She knelt to talk to him at eye level, listening patiently as he told her a few things about himself in quiet, hesitant words. She didn't interrupt, didn't judge, and didn't seem impatient, even though the cafe had grown busier as more customers had taken refuge from the rain. She handled the situation with a calm authority that made everyone feel at ease. It was clear that her kindness came naturally, and not as part of any duty or expectation. As he sipped his coffee, the millionaire reflected on what he had seen. Here was a young woman with no obligation to go out of her way for a stranger, yet she had done so without hesitation. Her compassion wasn't calculated, it was instinctive. He realized that the impact of her actions went far beyond the small cafe walls. The little boy, who had been frightened and alone just moments ago, was now smiling faintly and feeling safe. The millionaire felt a lump in his throat. He had witnessed kindness in many forms before, but this spontaneous, heartfelt compassion was something entirely different. He wanted to interact with her more this time, but he remained cautious. He kept up his humble persona, ordering the same simple meal as before. When she approached his table to serve him, she greeted him with her usual warmth, unaware of the inner turmoil he was feeling. He asked about the little boy, subtly trying to see how much she cared without appearing intrusive. She responded softly, explaining that she had noticed him struggling outside and wanted to make sure he was okay. Her explanation was natural, almost matter-of-fact, but it carried a weight that moved him deeply. There was no pretense, no need for recognition. She helped simply because it was the right thing to do. While he ate, he continued to watch her interact with the other customers. A young couple at a nearby table had come in soaked from the rain, and she handed them towels and offered complimentary tea while they waited for their order. A man at another table had left behind his wallet, and she discreetly returned it to him, ensuring he didn't even realize it had been missing until she approached. Each of these small acts reinforced what he had already begun to understand. Her kindness was consistent, unwavering, and sincere. It wasn't for show, and it wasn't about reward. It was genuine, and it touched everyone around her in ways that could not be measured. The little boy ate slowly, savoring each bite of the soup, and the millionaire noticed the W. Waitress gently encouraging him, speaking softly, making sure he felt comfortable. He realized that her patience and care were limitless. Even when dealing with multiple tasks, she never rushed, never dismissed, never let frustration show. She embodied a rare quality that went unnoticed by many, but was profoundly impactful for those who experienced it. He felt a growing admiration for her, realizing that she was someone who could teach the world more about compassion than any book or lecture ever could. As he finished his meal, he decided to linger a bit longer. He wanted to see how the rest of the day would unfold. Soon, a small incident occurred that would leave a lasting impression on him. An elderly woman entered the cafe, clearly struggling to balance her umbrella and shopping bags. She tripped slightly, and a few items fell to the floor. The waitress rushed to her side, helping her pick up her belongings and offering a warm smile. She guided her to a table, making sure she was seated comfortably and that she had everything she needed. She didn't make her actions seem like a duty. They were natural, effortless, and full of genuine care. The millionaire felt tears prick his eyes as he watched this interaction. Here was someone whose entire demeanor radiated kindness, and it was not limited by circumstance, need, or expectation. He began to realize that the cafe, the food, and even the people were secondary to the lesson he was learning. The waitress's behavior was a mirror, showing him the kind of world that could exist if people treated each other with honesty, respect, and compassion. It was a simple truth, yet one he had overlooked in his busy life filled with wealth and ambition. This small cafe, this ordinary-looking woman, was revealing something extraordinary. He felt humbled, and for the first time in a long time, he understood that the most powerful impact a person could have was not through wealth, influence, or authority, but through simple acts of kindness and empathy. As the day continued, he noticed her still tending to everyone around her with unwavering care. She comforted a young girl who had spilled her drink, reassured a nervous teenager trying to order for the first time, and even offered encouragement to a struggling artist sketching quietly in the corner. Every small action reinforced the depth of her compassion. The millionaire was struck by the fact that her kindness was not limited to those who could give her anything in return. It was indiscriminate, pure, and profound. He decided he could no longer just observe. He wanted to understand her on a deeper level, to connect in some meaningful way. But he was also aware that his true identity as a wealthy businessman had to remain hidden, at least for now. He approached her carefully, asking about her day and genuinely listening to her responses. She spoke about her work, her dreams, and her family, sharing moments of struggle and moments of joy. Her openness and sincerity were disarming, making him feel a connection he had not expected. He realized that her character was not defined by her job or her circumstances, but by the heart she carried and the care she showed to others. At one point, she mentioned a colleague who had been having a tough week, and she subtly tried to lift his spirits while still managing her responsibilities. The millionaire was amazed by her ability to balance her own work while extending support to others. He understood that true kindness required not just empathy, but also patience, resilience, and strength. Watching her, he felt a growing sense of respect and humility. He realized that this simple waitress, who seemed ordinary at first glance, possessed qualities that many people with wealth and power lacked. As he prepared to leave, he quietly observed her one last time. She was cleaning up a small spill at the counter, smiling at a young child who had wandered close, speaking gently and reassuringly. The scene struck him deeply, and he knew that this moment, this day, had changed him in ways he could not yet fully articulate. He had come to test her, to see if kindness could exist without expectation, but in reality, he had been the one transformed. Her compassion, patience, and selflessness had left an imprint on his heart that would not fade. Stepping back into the rain-soaked streets, he felt a mixture of awe and gratitude. He understood now that wealth could buy comfort and security, but it could never buy the lessons he was learning here. The true measure of a person was not in what they owned, but in how they treated others, especially those who could offer nothing in return. The waitress had shown him that genuine kindness existed, that it could be powerful, transformative, and inspiring. He walked away with a newfound respect for humanity and a determination to carry these lessons with him, knowing that his journey of understanding had only just begun. That evening, he returned to the cafe with a sense of anticipation that was stronger than ever before. Over the past few visits, he had watched, observed, and reflected. He had seen her kindness in action, the way she treated every person with respect, care, and genuine concern. But today, he knew it was time to take the next step. He wanted to reveal the truth, to see how she would respond once she knew who he really was. Even with this decision, a part of him was nervous. He had no idea how she would react, whether she would feel betrayed, confused, or upset. He reminded himself to approach it carefully and respectfully. The cafe was warm and inviting, a small haven from the chilly evening outside. She was moving gracefully between tables, her focus on the customers as always. Even as the place grew busier, she never seemed flustered or hurried. He watched her, feeling a deep sense of admiration. This woman, through her simple acts of kindness, had taught him more about humanity than all his years of business and success combined. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and waited until she approached his table to serve his meal. When she placed the plate and cup in front of him, he smiled warmly. "I need to tell you something," he said softly. Her eyes met his, curious and attentive, and she nodded for him to continue. He explained that over the past few days, he had been visiting the cafe not just as a customer, but with a purpose. He admitted that he was a wealthy businessman, and that he had been pretending to be someone who had little money to see how she would treat him. He spoke carefully, emphasizing that he wanted to understand the true nature of kindness and human compassion. For a moment, she was silent, her expression unreadable. He held his breath, unsure how she would respond. Then, slowly, a smile appeared on her face, gentle and understanding. She took a deep breath and spoke softly, explaining that kindness, in her view, should never depend on wealth or status. She said that she treated him the same way she would treat anyone, because every person deserved respect, dignity, and care. There was no anger, no bitterness, just honesty and integrity. Hearing her words, he felt tears well up in his eyes. Her response was more than he could have hoped for. It was pure, sincere, and humbling. He realized in that moment that he had been searching for something deeper than wealth and success. He had been seeking proof that genuine kindness still existed, and here it was, embodied in this young woman. She had passed the unspoken test he had set up, but more importantly, she had reminded him of a truth he had long forgotten, that the measure of a person was not in what they had, but in how they treated others. Her actions and words left a lasting impression on him, one that would remain with him for the rest of his life. Over the next hour, they talked more openly. He asked her about her dreams, her family, and what she hoped to achieve in life. She shared stories of her struggles and triumphs, speaking with a quiet strength that was both inspiring and humbling. She had faced many challenges, yet she carried herself with grace, never allowing difficulties to dampen her spirit or her willingness to help others. He listened intently, feeling increasingly connected to her on a human level, beyond the experiment or the test he had designed. As the evening progressed, he noticed the small ways she continued to help those around her. She comforted a child who had dropped a toy, reassured a young couple trying to decide what to order, and even assisted an elderly customer with carrying a bag. Her actions were not extraordinary in the sense of grandeur, but they were extraordinary in their sincerity and consistency. He realized that true greatness was not measured by wealth or fame, but by the ability to touch lives through genuine care and empathy. She was great in the most meaningful way possible. Feeling moved and grateful, he wanted to give her an opportunity that could truly change her life. He explained that he had means beyond what most people could imagine, and that he wanted to help her in ways that would allow her to pursue her dreams and support her family. He was careful to emphasize that any offer was entirely up to her and that she was free to decline. He wanted her to feel empowered, not indebted. She listened thoughtfully, and though initially surprised, she considered the possibilities with an open heart. Her humility remained, but there was also a spark of hope in her eyes, a recognition that life could hold unexpected blessings. They discussed practical steps she could take to improve her situation, whether it was education, family support, or investing in her small cafe. He promised to assist discreetly, without wing attention or making her feel uncomfortable. The conversation was not just about money. It was about creating opportunities and empowering her to thrive. She expressed gratitude, but also a strong desire to continue being the kind, compassionate person he had come to admire. He smiled, realizing that her character could not be changed by wealth. It was innate, unshakable, and beautiful. During the conversation, he also reflected on his own life. He had spent so much time chasing success, accumulating wealth, and seeking recognition. Yet, in the presence of her simple kindness, he felt a deeper sense of fulfillment than he had ever experienced before. It was a humbling reminder that happiness and satisfaction were found not in possessions, but in connection, compassion, and the impact one could have on others. Her presence had illuminated a path he had long overlooked, a path where meaning and joy came from helping and caring for others. As the evening wound down, he realized that this encounter had changed him fundamentally. He had set out to test her, but instead he had been tested himself. He had learned lessons about humility, empathy, and the enduring power of kindness. Her actions had inspired him to approach life differently, to seek out opportunities to support and uplift others, and to value the simple, human connections that truly mattered. Before leaving, he offered her a heartfelt thanks, acknowledging the lessons she had unknowingly imparted. She smiled and replied that she had simply done what she felt was right, unaware of the profound impact her behavior had on him. He walked out into the cool night air, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and transformation. He knew that his life, once defined by wealth and achievement alone, would now be guided by the understanding that true value lay in kindness, empathy, and genuine human connection. That night, he reflected on everything he had witnessed and experienced. The waitress had shown him the extraordinary power of ordinary acts of compassion. She had reminded him that wealth could never replace the warmth of a kind heart, the comfort of a listening ear, or the joy of helping someone in need. Her unwavering integrity and humility had left an indelible mark on his soul, shaping the way he intended to live from that day forward. It was a moment of awakening, a profound realization that the simplest gestures often carried the most significant meaning. He understood that this was only the beginning. The journey of learning from her kindness, of seeking out opportunities to extend generosity and support to others, was ongoing. He felt inspired to live differently, to use his resources and influence not just for personal gain, but to foster genuine human connection and make a meaningful difference in people's lives. The encounter had taught him that true success was not in wealth alone, but in the ability to touch hearts, uplift spirits, and leave the world a better place than one had found it. Walking through the city streets that night, he felt lighter than he had in years. His heart was full, not with the pride of success, but with the quiet satisfaction of having discovered a rare and precious truth, that kindness, when expressed without expectation, had the power to transform both the giver and the receiver. And in that moment, he knew he had found something far more valuable than any fortune. He had found a reminder of the beauty, goodness, and humanity that still existed in the world, embodied in one remarkable young woman who had no idea of the life-changing impact she had made. The following morning, he woke with a sense of purpose, unlike anything he had felt before. He knew that his life had been touched profoundly by a simple, genuine act of kindness, and he was determined to ensure that the impact went beyond himself. Today, he would act, not just observe. He prepared himself carefully, making sure to approach the cafe with the same humility as before, so that the woman who had inspired him would feel respected and empowered, not obligated. As he entered, the familiar warmth of the cafe embraced him. The waitress greeted him with her characteristic smile, unaware of the deeper conversation they were about to have. The cafe was alive with the quiet hum of conversation, the clinking of cups, and the gentle laughter of children. He took a seat and waited patiently, savoring the moment. It was time to offer her a chance that could transform her life, and he wanted to do it in a way that honored her dignity and her choices. He began by telling her how deeply her actions had moved him over the past visits. He spoke honestly, without exaggeration, explaining that her kindness, patience, and selflessness had taught him more than any lesson in his life. He emphasized that he admired her, not because she had impressed a wealthy man, but because she had embodied qualities he had longed to see in the world. Her reactions remained gentle, thoughtful, and humble, as if she was absorbing his words without seeking praise or recognition. He realized again how rare and extraordinary her nature truly was, and, carefully, he explained that he wanted to offer her support, help that could make a significant difference in her life and her family's life. He spoke about education, about the potential to grow the cafe into something more sustainable, and about ways to secure a better future without compromising her values or independence. He stressed that everything would be done discreetly and respectfully, with her full consent, and that she would retain control over every decision. It was important to him that this offer be empowering, not patronizing. At first, she was quiet, taking in his words. There was surprise, naturally, but it was followed by reflection. She asked questions about the support, wanting to understand the practicalities, the responsibilities, and the long-term impact. He answered honestly, explaining that his aim was to provide opportunities, not to control or interfere. As they talked, he noticed the spark in her eyes, the same spark he had seen in the way she cared for others. It was hope, cautious yet genuine, and it warmed his heart. Here was a person who had given so much to others without expecting anything, now opening herself to the possibility of receiving help that could change her life. While they spoke, he observed her interactions with other customers. A man had dropped his bag, scattering papers across the floor, and she knelt to help, speaking kindly and reassuringly. A child had spilled milk on a chair, and she cleaned it up quickly, offering a warm smile and gentle words. Every small gesture reinforced what he already knew. Her kindness was consistent, sincere, and extraordinary. It was a rare quality, and he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude that he had discovered it. After some time, she began to accept the offer in principle, expressing her gratitude with humility. She was cautious, asking that any support be structured in a way that allowed her to maintain her independence and dignity. He agreed wholeheartedly, promising that nothing would ever compromise her values or force her into situations she was uncomfortable with. They discussed concrete steps, funding for her family's needs, improvements to the cafe, and educational opportunities that could open new doors. It was not a lavish plan. It was thoughtful, meaningful, and practical, designed to provide stability and growth without disrupting her life or her principles. The conversation then turned to dreams, not just practical needs. She spoke about the future she hoped to create, both for herself and for those she cared about. She described aspirations that were humble yet inspiring, to provide for her family, to help her community, and to create a space in the cafe where people could feel welcome and cared for. He listened intently, inspired by the clarity and purpose in her words. It was a reminder that true ambition was not always about wealth or fame, but about creating positive impact, fostering kindness, and building meaningful connections. As the afternoon passed, they continued to talk, planning and dreaming, sharing ideas, and exploring possibilities. Every interaction between them was marked by respect, understanding, and mutual admiration. He felt increasingly certain that his life had been enriched far beyond what he had anticipated. He had entered the cafe seeking to test someone's kindness, but instead he had discovered lessons in humility, compassion, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The experience had changed him, and now it was poised to change her life as well. In the background, the cafe continued its quiet rhythm, a setting that mirrored the warmth and simplicity of the lessons being shared. Customers were unaware of the deeper conversation unfolding, yet they benefited from her continued care and attention. The millionaire watched as she handled every small task with patience and empathy, realizing again that her character could not be altered by wealth or circumstance. She was a person of integrity, resilience, and profound generosity. Her actions, both big and small, had created a ripple effect Touching everyone who entered the cafe, he felt a deep sense of responsibility, knowing that he had the means to influence her life significantly. But he also understood that the most important aspect was to do so without undermining her autonomy. The goal was not to control or impress, but to empower and uplift. This understanding guided every word he spoke and every step they discussed. He knew that genuine support required trust, respect, and patience, and he was committed to providing all three. As the evening approached, they finalized the initial plans. The waitress expressed a mix of relief, gratitude, and cautious excitement. She was appreciative, yet grounded, understanding that real change required effort, patience, and perseverance. He reassured her that he would provide guidance and resources without dictating her path. It was a partnership built on respect, understanding, and shared commitment to meaningful improvement. He left the cafe that evening with a sense of accomplishment, not in the traditional sense of wealth or success, but in having contributed to something profoundly important, the potential to make a lasting difference in the life of a person he genuinely admired. Over the following weeks, he quietly supported her initiatives, helping improve the cafe, assisting with educational opportunities, and ensuring her family's needs were met. He did this discreetly, respecting her privacy and allowing her to maintain her dignity. The changes were subtle but impactful, providing stability, comfort, and a renewed sense of possibility. She continued her work with the same unwavering kindness, now bolstered by the knowledge that she had support to pursue her dreams and care for those around her. The ripple effect of her compassion grew stronger, touching more lives, and the millionaire felt a profound sense of fulfillment knowing he had played a role in that process. In the months that followed, he reflected often on the lessons he had learned from her. He realized that wealth could provide comfort and opportunity, but it could never replace the value of genuine human connection. The small acts of kindness she had shown, welcoming a child in need, assisting an elderly customer, showing patience and empathy to everyone, had illuminated a path he had long overlooked. He understood that the greatest impact in life came from caring for others, from lifting spirits, and from making people feel seen, valued, and respected. Her example had inspired him to approach his own life differently, with humility, generosity, and an open heart. The story of their meeting, though private, became a personal reminder of what truly mattered. He carried it with him as he navigated his world of business, wealth, and influence, using it as a compass to guide his actions and decisions. He knew that the real measure of success was not in financial gain, but in the positive impact one could have on the lives of others. The waitress had taught him that lesson in the simplest, most profound way possible, through her consistent, genuine kindness. He never sought recognition for his role in her life. Instead, he found joy in seeing her thrive, in knowing that the support he provided allowed her to continue being the remarkable person she was. Each day, as she served customers with her warm smile and caring demeanor, he was reminded of the transformative power of compassion, patience, and empathy. He realized that this journey, which had begun as an experiment, had become one of the most meaningful experiences of his life. Years later, the cafe flourished, a testament not only to the improvements made, but also to the atmosphere of care, respect, and kindness that she had cultivated. Customers returned not just for the food or the coffee, but for the feeling of being welcomed, valued, and cared for. The millionaire continued to visit occasionally, not to test or observe, but to witness the enduring impact of her character. Each visit reaffirmed the lesson that had changed his life, that true wealth lies not in money, but in the hearts of people, in the kindness they show, and in the lives they touched out in the end. Their story was a quiet reminder to everyone who knew it or even heard whispers of it, that genuine human connection, compassion, and integrity are far more powerful than any fortune. It was proof that even in a world that often prioritizes wealth and status, the simplest acts of kindness can leave the deepest marks, creating ripples that shape lives, inspire hearts, and transform communities in ways that money could never achieve. And for him, the millionaire, it was a lifelong lesson in humility, gratitude, and the enduring power of a kind heart.